Miss Stahlecker here. Got my ears on again because you know I love Disney. And I hope everybody's doing well. I hope we're all happy and healthy. And I want to sing a song for you guys because I miss you so much. This is You Are My Sunshine. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away. Today's lesson is going to be about art, so let's get going with it. Hi kids! Today we are going to talk about the elements of art again. To review, the elements of art include line, shape, form, space, texture, color, and value. Today we are going to focus on shape and form. In art, we think of shape as being two-dimensional, so that would be length times width, and forms would be three-dimensional, length, width, and height. And some examples of what that looks like would be here. Shapes are flat, two-dimensional shapes. They would fit flat on a piece of paper. But forms are three-dimensional. When you're thinking about shapes, you want to think about whether it's a geometric shape or an organic shape. Geometric shapes are your basic shapes that you would learn about in math class. But organic shapes would be a little bit harder to describe. They tend to be irregular, asymmetrical, that means not have symmetry, and they tend to be curvy or found in nature. So here are some examples of some organic shapes. Now, when we're talking about geometric shapes, we can categorize or label them based on how many sides they have. So if a shape has three sides, what do we call it? If it has three sides, we call it a triangle. If a shape has four sides, we would call it a quadrilateral. And let's look at those prefixes on those words. Tri for three and quad for four. If you have a shape that has five sides, we would call that a pentagon. So you can see that prefix there. 6 sides would be a hexagon. 8 sides would be an octagon. 10 sides would be a decagon. Do you recognize that DEC from like decimeters? And 12 sides would be a dodecagon. You could go on and on, but that's as many sides as I'm going to do right now. Let's go back to talking about triangles. When we look at a triangle, we can give it a special name or a category based on how long the sides are. So if all 3 sides are the same length, we would call that an equilateral triangle. And you can remember equal. All 3 sides are equal. If 2 sides of the triangle are the same length, but the third one is different, we would call that an isosceles triangle. And if all 3 sides are different lengths, we would describe that as a scalene triangle. Triangles can also be categorized or labeled by their angles. For example, this triangle has a right angle, and you can see that we label right angles with a little square in the corner. If a triangle has a right angle, then we will call that a right triangle. Now, if one of the sides of the triangle is larger, if it's more open, more wide than a right angle, that would be an obtuse triangle because there is an obtuse angle. That's what we call an angle that's wider than 90 degrees. But if all 3 of the angles are smaller than 90 degrees, we would call that an acute triangle. So we look at these. None of these angles are open up as much as a square. So all of them are acute, and it's just a cute little triangle. Now we're going to talk about quadrilaterals or four-sided shapes. We're going to start with parallelogram. A parallelogram is a four-sided shape that's created with two pairs of parallel lines. So the top and the bottom are parallel. That means if you extended that line out forever, it would never ever cross. These two lines, the top and bottom, would never cross, no matter how long you extended that line out. And then the sides over here are also parallel. So no matter how long you extended those lines, they would never cross. So this shape is called a parallelogram. And my teachers used to tell us to remember that parallel means they'll never cross, like these two little L's in the middle of the word. A special kind of parallelogram is a rhombus, and a rhombus is a parallelogram where all four sides are the same length. If you have a shape that has one set of parallel lines, like this one, the top and bottom are parallel, but the other two lines would intersect if they extended on. You can imagine that if they went all the way up here, they would make a point right about here. Then that's a shape we call a trapezoid. And I remember this one because the trapezoid to me looks like a triangle that has been chopped off. A rectangle is a special kind of parallelogram. All four corners are right angles. And a square is a special type of rectangle where all four sides are the same length, or you could call it a special kind of rhombus where all four corners are right angles. Pretty neat, huh? Some curved shapes would include circle, oval. Another name for oval is ellipse. A semicircle is half of a circle, and a crescent shape. Now let's move on and talk about forms. Forms are three-dimensional. You can have a rectangular prism, and that's a three-dimensional shape that's based on a rectangle. So you can see the rectangle here, and a cube. All six faces are squares. Some other three-dimensional shapes include cones and cylinders. And also a sphere. A sphere is a form that is round like a ball. Some three-dimensional forms that are based around triangles would include a pyramid or a triangular prism. A triangular prism looks like a tent shape to me. Now, at this point, you're probably asking, why do we need to think about shape and form in art? Well, I'll tell you. So when we're going to draw, we have to look at the shape an object is, but also the shape we actually see. So if I were to go back a few slides, we know that a cylinder, this part right here, is actually a circle. But it looks like an oval right now because of the angle that we're looking at it. And that's important when you're trying to draw. Another example would be on a cube. We know, and our brain automatically tells us that all six of the faces of a cube are a square. But when we really look at it from some angles, it looks like this is a rhombus, doesn't it? The angles don't look like right angles if you look at it from a different direction. So that's going to be important when we draw. Now I'm going to show you how to draw a cube and some other three-dimensional forms. Hi kids! The first three-dimensional object I'm going to show you how to draw is a cube. So this one's pretty easy as long as you already know how to draw a square. We're going to start with a square. I'm drawing with markers on a whiteboard, but I would suggest that you guys use pencil and paper because it'll be easy to erase if you make a mistake or you need to fix something. So there's my square. Not perfect, but pretty good. And then the next thing that we're going to do to make this square look like a cube is we're going to draw another square, but we're going to layer it on top and up a little bit. So now I'm going to draw a square right here. So I have two squares like that. And then to connect it and make it look like a cube, I'm just going to connect all of the corners, the vertices, from here to here, from here to here, from here to here, and from here to here. And now it looks like a transparent cube. But if you wanted it to look solid and not clear, you would need to remove these lines that you wouldn't be able to see through. And now it looks solid. And I'm going to show you an easier way if you just want it to be solid like this and not where you can see all the lines through it. So if you want it to look solid, you're going to have that same square, but you're going to take diagonal lines coming from 3 of the corners, and you want to make them all going the same direction and all about the same length. And then you'll just connect those lines. And there you go. Now you can take this basic idea and also draw a rectangular prism or a triangular prism. So if I want to make it a rectangle, I can draw a rectangle like that. I can draw the other rectangle and connect all those corners. Like that. Or I can just draw the rectangle and again draw those diagonal lines going the same direction and connect them like that. Same basic trick. The thing about trying to draw things that are three-dimensional is you have to look at what shape you actually see instead of what shape your brain knows it to be. So when you're looking at this shape, your brain automatically translates that this is a rectangle and this is also a rectangle, even though when you're looking at it, it looks like a parallelogram, if that makes sense. And so as an artist, when you're looking to try to draw something and make it look 3D, don't just think about what shape you know it actually is. Really look at it and look at what shapes you can see from the angle that you're looking at it. And we can take that same basic idea also if we want to make a triangular prism. So I have a triangle, and if I draw those diagonal lines here, we have the basic shape of a triangular prism, and you can use that in your art. So if you want to make a house, you can think that's basically a rectangular prism and a triangular prism on top of it. So if we had that and that, then we want our triangular prism over here. We have the basic shape for a house and things like that. If you want to draw a pyramid, you're going to take a triangle and then you're going to take one diagonal line here, and the other line is going to reach to that point at the top. So then it looks like a pyramid. And now I'm going to show you how to draw a cylinder and a cone. So if you want to draw a cylinder, you have to look at what shape you see. Even though we know it's really a circle here and a circle at the bottom, when you look at it, most of the time the angle is to where you actually see an oval at the top. So when we draw a cylinder, we're usually going to draw an oval at the top and the sides, and then at the bottom it's also an oval. If you want it to be clear, you would see the whole oval, but if you wanted it to be solid, you would not. And then keep in mind that any designs, so like the can label, would also follow that same curve. This curve should match this curve and should match this curve. And so when you're writing, it would even follow that curve. And it's pretty similar for a cone. If you want to draw a cone, it's an oval and then basically a triangle. But usually I like to see a cone this way. Because you know what I like to put in that cone? That's right, ice cream. So if you were going to get detailed with this, you would have all of the lines of the cone to follow that shape of the curve. And that will help your drawings to look more realistic. And then what shape would we put on the cone for the ice cream? A sphere, basically. A sphere is kind of hard to do without actually having shading to make it look not just like a circle. But if we were going to make this into ice cream, we could do that little fluff right there and kind of do some shading to make it look a little bit rounder, like the light is coming from this side. And those are some easy ways to draw three-dimensional forms. I hope you have fun practicing drawing all of these three-dimensional figures, and just draw and have fun. I miss you guys. Bye!